Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Over the Top Radio. I'm your host, George Thomas. We are featuring racers and crew members taking part in the upcoming fall events, Silver State 508, Texas Time Trials, No Country for Old Men. We especially want to thank the great people over at Cardo Systems for partnering with us for this series. It's leading up to the 508 and culminating with a show which is going to take place as a post-race wrap-up. And hopefully our guest today is going to be a part of that. The Cardo BK1 from Cardo Systems, a Bluetooth communications entertainment system for cyclists. Check that out at cardosystems.com, C-A-R-D-O systems.com, and look at their 40% off month-long Labor Day sale. Yes, that's right, 40% off, both the BK1 single, which is 1 unit, or the BK1 duo, which is 2 units. That's, again, for the entire month of September. We're also featuring a giveaway on our September shows of the Cardo BK1 Duo here on Over the Top Radio. During our shows this month, we're going to have a word, a Cardo word or phrase. Now write that down and send us your answer via Facebook message, either to me or Over the Top Radio. And whoever has the most correct answers at the end of September is going to be eligible to win the Cardo BK1 Duo. If there are any ties, then the winner is going to be determined via drawing, and we'll announce that winner on our final show, the Silver State Wrap-Up Show. Now, last night we enjoyed our chat with Dave Haase, and he set the bar pretty high for our future guests, and we thought the best follow-up to Dave would be the guy who we've got on the line with us right now. He's been a guest a few times. Following his win at the Hoodoo 500, he took part in a panel discussion on endurance cycling, which we emceed at High Tech Sports in San Diego. And I got to see an awful lot of him at this year's Race Across the West, where he was he placed second to Marco Ballo. He was very friendly and said hello, as did his crew every time he passed me. Adam Bickett, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's nice to be able to chat with you in full sentences rather than, hi.
Yeah, I think we got in something about night riding on that last climb. I forget the gist of that, but yeah.
Yeah, I think so. You've had some really good results at just about every ultra event that you've entered, and you were in a tight race with Marco at Race Across the West. In fact, it was so close, there was a point I was wondering if you guys were going to get a penalty because you were stalking each other so closely. I want to start out
I
with
went
a question.
Back and looked at the rules again. I heard you mention that when you were talking with Mike and James, and I guess it's 100 meters. We were definitely inside that for some time, although it was on climbs. So.
Oh, you guys weren't like drafting, but oh my God, you were like a tick.
Well, I mean, neither of us wanted to throw down at any point at that time, but especially when it's 400 or 500 miles in.
But it sure made it fun for us, and it was really exciting to watch.
Yeah,
so I want to start out.
Everyone's blowing up.
With a question that I asked Dave at the end of our interview last night, but I want to be a little more specific with it. Did your race with Marco help you last night, or did it actually end up hindering you?
During Raw?
Yep.
Yeah. I think that it wasn't too much of a factor, really. My whole intention was to race my own race. I know Marco's an extremely strong and extremely experienced rider. So, of course, my goals, I had to alter them slightly when he joined the race about a month before. And what I told myself was, as it always been, this was my testing grounds for RAM, and I really needed to do the best race that I could. So, I tried my best to make it not during the race. I still had the same goals, and it certainly made it exciting there in the middle. But in some sense, it might help to push. But at that point, I mean, you pretty much 400 or 500 miles in. I mean, you're doing what you can do, and it might have hurt me a little bit because I was concentrating more on the race situation, and I lapsed on my calories, and that really hurt me for the latter half of that day because, as you know from that course, especially with that reroute up I-17, that was just brutal, and I hadn't been eating for a long section before that. I really got behind on my calories, and so I think my attention was a little bit distracted there, which could have hurt me. But I did pretty well to keep it my own race. Marco eventually pulled away before that Mingus climb, and that was the last I saw of him.
And was that demoralizing at all when he went ahead, or were you kind of thinking, you know what, now I can settle in to what I want to do, and I'm just not going to worry about him, and whatever happens, happens?
Exactly. I mean, I wasn't stoked about it, but at the same time, I knew I didn't have that in my legs at that point, and I also knew there was 400 or 500 miles left of the race, and you don't know what's going to happen. So at that point, I was just able to settle in. I started realizing I'm way behind on calories. I need to get this under control, and there's so many things to keep your mind busy in those races that I was able to get back to the task at hand.
I got to say, you guys made me feel really fat because any time I was out there and we hit a roller, you would disappear, and then maybe Mick would catch up to you guys on the climbs, but I actually rolled up to you as we were dropping into that little part before Mingus, and I was like, really? Thanks. Now, it was out there, and you said yourself Raw was a tune-up for Ram. Can you tell us some about your 8-man relay experience at Ram, and do you feel like you learned anything there that actually might help you when you're racing solo?
Oh, definitely. The 8-man team experience was incredible. The Viasat team, I was approached through a friend who had been recruited for that team, but he wasn't interested in racing for days at a time, and he said, "Hey, Adam might just want to do that." And we had a full season of training leading up to the race, and I had already been very interested in solo Ram. So this is just a great opportunity to get a look at the course across the country. A completely different racing environment on the 8-person team rather than solo, but still getting to have a feel for that each of those sections of the course. Sections. It even helped me for Raw, and I really like checking out the course ahead of time. In fact, I went last month and flew into Columbus and rode the last 500 miles of the race over a couple days to check out the whole course. We saw bits and pieces in the 8-person team, but completely different pace, of course. So yeah, I love the racing experience, the team racing experience. I did the 2-person hoodoo just a few weeks ago, and that was also a great different vantage point on the hoodoo race.
Now that really leads into my next question for you. I really like how well-rounded you are racing both solo and team, because a lot of people are like, nah, I'm a solo guy, or nah, I really like team. I don't want to race solo. What do you like most about each of them?
There's a lot to like about both of them. Even solo is a team experience because the crew is so integral to the whole effort. But when you're sharing with other riders as well, on the 8-person, of course, there's 7 other guys, and you basically, you can go so much harder as well. I love the intensity. I mean, I feel like I'm more naturally talented, just crit racing, maybe shorter road races. I've really it's taken me many years to get my body to calm down and not blow up on long races, more than 200 miles. So the team race, both both gets that camaraderie with the riders where, you're sharing a truck with your teammate and you're going out to take a really hard pull, you jump back in the car, your teammate's out there ripping it up, and you can recover a little bit, you can get out there and hit at a near TT intensity, at least for the 8-person team. There's a lot to like about that. On the flip side, I love being out there for just super long distances. It's just a completely different vantage on just the whole experience and the feeling you get of accomplishment on the solo ride. That's really my main goal, and while I love the team, the solo, the whole experience and the accomplishment, that's Solo Ram next year.
Now, have you ever been out when you're racing solo and thought, oh my God, I wish I could just hand off to a teammate right now, and conversely, racing team and thinking, I don't want to get off the bike?
Probably not so much. I don't want to get off the bike. On the team races, it's always nice to see that truck because you're going as hard as you possibly can to reach the truck and your teammate. So I've never thought, oh man, I wish I was out here for another 10 miles, unless maybe it's a ripping descent or something. But for solo, of course, yeah. I mean, I would have been happy to hand off to either you or Mick many points on Raw, but it wasn't really an option.
If I have any strength in ultra, it's being able to pick a good teammate, and man, Mick is awesome.
Yeah. But man, yeah, and one thing I did learn with a 2-person hoodoo, I mean, I had a very strong teammate who was Andrew Metal Danley, who was also on the 8-person Viasat team. It's harder. It's a lot harder. You think, I was thinking, okay, it's 250 miles, but you're racing so hard. When I finished, it felt like I had just done hoodoo, which I had, but it felt, you have a little bit of the fog in your head from racing all night. The feeling of in the legs, it was a very similar feeling, and I was a little surprised to be getting that. I'd ridden 250 miles, but I could have fooled myself to thinking I had just done the solo race.
Why is Solo Ram so important to you?
It's tough to explain. I guess it's just the next step, the ultimate accomplishment, the longest race, the most respected race in ultracycling, and something that just seemed incomprehensible when I first heard about it, and knew some friends who were getting into it, and I was just thinking, oh my God, I can't believe, I at the time maybe I could ride 100 miles, and I was just starting to get into double centuries, which gave me a lot of difficulty for a long time. And so I've just been making that slow progression, and I finally feel like I'm ready, but it just feels like the ultimate test, and I've had to do a lot of work to get to this point. And the act of riding across the country, I know a lot of the course, I know a lot of that experience, and it's just very meaningful to me. If I can do that and perform well, or just survive it, even it will really be a important accomplishment.
And what would make it a successful race? Do you feel like I've got to be in the top 5 for this thing to really be meaningful, or would getting an official finish be enough?
Well, it's always a tough thing. You have to, my goal is to do RAM, and as a part of any of these races, that each step, each next progression as I've gone into the sport, of course I want to race to the very maximum of my ability, but there's so many unknowns, and that's part of what makes it exciting. I mean, Raw is by far the longest I'd ever ridden, and now I'm going to do 4 times that. I don't know what's going to happen. A lot of people get out there and they're really surprised. And, I can't make any predictions about that. All I can do is prepare as well as I can. I'm trying to talk to as many people as I can, get as much advice from the people who have done this, to try to avoid any mistakes that people have regretted. But, if I get if I get to the finish, I'll be happy. I know lots of people, Strasser even at DNF their first time. I mean, things happen out there, so I can't hinge my my feeling of accomplishment on this one result, but just want to do everything I can to make it go as well as possible.
You're listening to Over the Top Radio. Our guest, Adam Bickett. I want to thank our partner, Carter Systems, and our Cardo BK1 Duo giveaway. Phrase for tonight is one of Adam's primary sponsors, SPY Optics, SPY Optics. Write that down, send it to either me or Over the Top Radio via Facebook message. Again, SPY Optics. Adam, why is the wildebeest such an important animal to you?
That's funny. So actually this ties back to my hoodoo partner as well. In the run-up to the 2012 8-person race, basically everyone on the team had a team moniker, and Metal, who is Andrew Danley's my teammate, typically bestowed these upon all the racers, and for some reason I was dubbed the wildebeest. I think because I'm kind of ugly on the bike. I'm don't have very great form, although I've tried really hard to make it better, and just kind of mash it out and try to get things done. So for some reason that became the wildebeest, and I've taken to that name. So.
And does anybody ever launch into a wild beast?
Call it wild beast or what?
Yeah, because on your website it's not spelled correctly. It's spelled like wild
right. Well, yeah,
beast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's an intentional. I mean, because I'm not the actual African plains mammal. It's my own thing, but yeah, it's somewhat.
Well, yeah, because the wheat canoe gets eaten by the crocodile, so. Exactly.
Yeah, and he also has really small legs, and it's not really the right thing. So yeah, I'm the misspelled version.
We got a question here from Jay Nielsen. He says at the 2010 Furnace Creek 508, you rode a fixed gear solo, and you finished in around 40 hours or so.
A very long time.
And he wanted...
it was a long travel.
Well, he had a question about your training. And is fixed gear something that you factor into your training? If you do, how frequently do you do that, and kind of distances do you ride, et cetera?
Yeah, well, it was certainly a factor in my training leading up to that race. I had a really rough 2009 508. It finished great for me. I spent about 7 hours throwing up on top of Town Pass, which for folks who don't know the route is really pretty early. It's about mile 200. So things went bad early, and that was my first 500-mile event. And then there was pretty famous headwinds throughout the length of Death Valley. I was feeling better then, but I was already 7 or 8 hours off the bike. So it was kind of a disappointment in a sense. The next year I felt like I still had some things to figure out. So it sounds kind of like twisted logic, but I thought, okay, I don't really want to worry about competition. I'll just do it on the fix, figure it out. Away from that, it was very hard, and I rode a lot on the fixed gear then. I don't ride so much on it now, although it is fun to break it out every once in a while. I did think about that again. There's a racer who did the fixed gear hoodoo this year, which I thought was incredible. I had thought about that, but kind of disregarded it because hoodoo is an extremely hard course with lots of steep climbs, 2 climbs over 10,000 feet. And now that he's done it, I think, I don't think that I'm going to do that, but maybe. But yeah, I don't ride to it standard, although it is a fun change of pace.
Yeah. What's your typical training week? Or do you have a typical training week?
Well, I have a pretty demanding job. Work for Qualcomm and basically software project engineer, and it's difficult. I don't quite have the work ethic of Dave, who I was hearing saying he starts most of his rides at 4:30 a.m. and and riding back at 10 p.m. I have a little bit of a harder time getting in meaningful training rides during the week. Although I've been, especially like in the run up to Raw, I was doing that. After Hoodoo and actually after Raw, I've been kind of a little bit lighter on the training just because my body felt tired. It was pretty taxing on me. So a lot of my training happens in bigger rides on the weekend, and I'll try and get in short, intense rides during the week, maybe about hour-long rides during the week.
You've done Hoodoo a few times. What makes that race special for you? Well,
the scenery is breathtaking. It really is an awesome course. It's two 10,000-foot peaks. There's the grand staircase. You go through Bryce. It's beautiful terrain out there. I really like the course, and it's really very challenging as well. And the open relay for a two-person is a lot of fun for this year.
What's your favorite course that you've raced anywhere, and also what's the most difficult?
That's a tough one. The core is the race, and the race experience is such a big part. I really like the Hoodoo. I had an awesome time on Raw this year. I really enjoyed that. And given it's the first part of Ram, and there's special meaning in that whole route. Even though there's sections of it I didn't like this past year. The Furnace Creek 508 course, that's where I started my ultra racing, and it really has meaning to me just because of that. It's tough to pick one. And weather conditions can change the difficulty of the course so much that
absolutely.
It can just be a completely different experience. So it's in any one of those courses, and pretty much anything I race could easily become the most difficult. And typically, the most difficult is the last one you did, because you have the most immediate experience.
What do you feel is your major strength as a racer?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I think all of us in the general community are mentally tough. Stressing that mental aspect is the reason we do it, and one of the reasons we do it in the first place. I've had lots of difficulty, as I alluded to before, just kind of keeping my body at a steady pace, even though I felt like I was pacing fine. My stomach would get really upset early, or my heart rate would be too high, even though I wasn't pushing it. So those are challenges that I had to get over. I think one thing you could say as a strength is I really have an interest in diving into all the problems that I encounter out on the bike and really trying to find solutions to them. And that's what makes a successful racer, I think. There's so many things that go wrong over the course of hundreds of miles. You have to be really invested in making sure you address those for the next race. And if you do, then you're really in good shape for doing well in this event.
Now, I've found it really interesting hearing you talk about you were doing centuries and then just starting into doubles and finding those really difficult.
Yeah.
At what point did you realize that this was something at which you could really excel?
It's been very slow and gradual, because I know I have the ability to do it, but I've really encountered pretty serious stumbling blocks along the way, pretty much every step when I pushed it. I think that's actually one of the reasons that I'm so interested in pushing more, because it's that much more meaningful when you finally break through and you're like, oh my God, I wasn't able to do this for so long, and I finally feel like I've figured it out. I finished a lot of doubles, like throwing up. This was back in my early 20s when I started saying, hey, I like this. I was actually a little bit intimidated to join the collegiate racing team at Santa Cruz. So I was like, all right, I'd rather just, go on these long rides, this less stress. And it just took me years, actually. I hear a lot of people's stories. They kind of get into the sport, they do a 200-mile ride, and then they sign up for Ram within 2 years. I think Dave was saying that there's like a 2-year between like his first ultra and Ram. It's staggering to me. It's been a long road for me, but I really I've made slow but steady progress, and I'm really happy with that.
Now, Silver State 508's coming up. No one has ridden this course, but from looking at the profile, what parts of the Silver State course do you feel are going to play to your strengths?
Yeah, well, funny enough, I've really dissected the course because I'm curious about it. You know, I'm a data guy, and I might actually post something about it because I have a lot of good info on it that people wanted secrets. Maybe I can share some of that. But you know, there's less climbing. There's less climbing in the second half versus the original 508 course, and that makes a big difference. The wind, it's tough to know. I think it's probably going to be bad for the return, it seems, or worse, which will be tough. Yeah, I think I like the course. You guys talked about it being the out and back. It is cool to see the other riders, because usually in these races, you know, you're out there somewhere alone. I'm typically not seeing racers, so to have that, even just passing for a second, I like that aspect. But yeah, I guess we'll see. It's really hard to judge.
Let's talk a little bit about the out and back and your acting skills. When your opponents can see you, or you can see your opponents, are you just going to ignore them, or are you going to really put in your inner actor? And if you are, is it better to look weak and like you're fading, or do you want to look strong and confident?
I probably would maybe give a slight acknowledgement or wave, depending, no, not giving that too much thought. It's good to see other riders out there, but yeah, we'll see.
What's your favorite distance? At what distance do you feel like you're the best?
Well, you know, it's been changing over the years, as I was saying. I mean, this year at Raw, I felt like, you know, I had a very rough second night, and that was the unknown for me. I tried to push it through without sleeping, and that was a mistake. I ended up just taking a power nap, but wasting a lot of time in the hours before because I was going slow, because I really shouldn't have been. I should have just taken a little bit of a break at that point. But after that, I really felt good. I finished in Durango feeling good, and like I could keep racing, which is exactly why I was like, okay, I think it's time for Ram. So I think once I solve all my issues, and it seemed to be coming to pretty good point in that, I think longer might be better. And other than that, very short sprints and crits are good too, but I haven't really been working on that so much.
I got to say, you looked amazing coming into Durango. I thought you looked better there than you did the day before.
I felt better, yeah. So that was not acting. I really felt great. You know, I got through that issue, Sunrise in Monument Valley. I just enjoyed. I knew Marco was way up the road, and I rode as hard as I could, but I was just enjoying the time because it's gorgeous out there, and I was so happy to feel as strong as I did.
Yeah, no, it was obvious you weren't faking it. I mean, just your attitude on the bike, and you looked fresh and you looked good. So that was pretty cool to see. 508, if it's a choice between blazing hot or snow on the passes, what do you prefer?
You know, I was actually thinking about this, and I surprised myself with preferring it to be hot, but I really don't think it will be. From looking at those temperatures, it looks average lows in the low 30s, record lows in the 10s. That sounds kind of miserable to me, and it's funny because until Raw, I was really scared of the heat because I typically don't do well. You know, I prepared really well for the heat this year. I spent some time out in Borrego, and I think it really did good things for my race. But the cold, and usually I handle cold well, but cold will expose. If your nutrition's off, you already feel colder just because your body's burning everything. It can to keep you going. You know, if your nutrition's off, you'll feel colder. I felt really cold the second night on Raw, even though it was in the 50s. And I wasted all this time because I was like, oh, I want to put on the jacket. Oh, no, I'm too hot. Like, oh, take off the jacket. And it was frustrating, but I was just not in, you know, the mental state to be able to just make a decision. So I think the cold will potentially be very difficult on the night because it's just tough to deal with on low calories.
Now, when do you intend to kind of launch your training for RAM next year, or do you feel like you already have and you're really into the cycle right now?
Yeah. I think the training for RAM is, cumulative over the last 10 years or so, and I'm certainly going to ramp it up, and I'm kind of formulating that plan right now with what I want to do over the winter and then heading into spring. I have the good fortune to live in San Diego, so there's really no limitations on winter training, and I don't have to touch a trainer, so I can be be out and training as much as I can get away. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw my Facebook post today, but looked at NOAA, and we're actually expecting some snow on Friday.
Wow. Yeah, I hope there aren't snowstorms for 508 too. I mean, it's a possibility, I guess, huh?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to some locals out in Reno, and it's like so variable that, like I was telling Dave, I mean, the mean temperature out there looks fantastic, but I've heard that it could just be incredibly hot, or like I said earlier, snow in the passes. So I think it's going to be a great race. Who do you see on the podium?
Oh, for sure. Oh, I don't imagine
Adam Bickett?
the podium, but
okay.
I don't imagine the podium, but I think a lot of people have been, so we can just look to those lists, I guess.
And kind of last question for you, when you go into a race like this, what's your mindset? Are you thinking, wow, I've got 508 miles to go? Do you go time station to time station? Or are you just thinking about the next 10-mile stretch, whatever?
Yeah. I mean, it works best to stay in the present moment, not think too far ahead. Kind of intermediate goals. That I've kind of developed that, but it's such a great feeling at the start of these races. It's just a really good buzz, and raw especially because that was also Ram start and everything. But any of these races, I mean, it's just got an awesome feeling. You have everything in line. You have your crew behind you. All you got to do is go and ride the bike. And so you just enjoy the moment. You don't really think too hard about anything coming up, the 500 miles, all that stuff. You just get out and enjoy the ride.
Cardo BK1 Duo giveaway phrase. Once again, it's one of Adam's primary sponsors, SPY Optics, SPY Optics. Again, send that to me via Facebook message, or you can do the same to Over the Top Radio. And next week, we got a pretty good lineup for you. We got Bob Mayansky joining us, the cycling attorney, as well as Marco Ballo and one of his clients that he's coaching that is also going to be racing the 508. So looking forward to speaking with them. Also going to be chatting with some people who are going to be racing the Texas Time Trials. Adam Bickett, best of luck at the Silver State 508. Really hope to see you up there leading the pack.
Thanks very much.
For Over the Top Radio in Boulder, Colorado, I'm George Thomas.